The rope cut into her ankles like a question that wouldn't let go. Tess Hartley hung upside down from the gallows beam, her skirt tied at the knees to protect modesty, or perhaps just to keep the townfolk from seeing too much of their own cruelty reflected in her bare legs. The morning sun poured over her like molten brass, baking the shame into her skin. Every breath rattled against her ribs, blood rushing to her skull until her thoughts blurred with the dust rising below. Children stared. A boy laughed and threw a pebble. It nicked her shoulder. She didn't flinch. That seemed to bother them more than if she'd cried. Old women whispered behind parasols. She took lace. For Miss Keeley's shop. Lace. For a handkerchief. She fancied herself a lady. Well, look where that got her. Tess said nothing. Words were for people withstanding. What she had left was silence and spit. The latter she used sparingly. Sheriff Carver stood at the edge of the scaffold, arms folded across his belly. An hour's hangin', enough to remind folks what thieving costs. He didn't look at her. Not really. She was a lesson, not a person. Farther down the dusty street, Boone Weller's horse had stopped moving. Elias Doone stood beside the animal, a hand resting against its thick neck. The chestnut gelding, Sancho, snorted once, then planted his hooves in the dirt like an oath. Boone, red-faced and glistening under his straw hat, spat a curse. What in the hell's the matter with him? Elias didn't answer right away. He'd been watching the girl. From his distance, her face was just a pale blot over shadowed eyes, but he saw how still she held herself. Not limp, rigid, as if she dared the air not to hold her up. Sancho shifted, but wouldn't budge. The reins were taut, his ears pinned. Elias moved to the front and whispered into his mane. The horse remained still, as if rooted. Boone wiped sweat from his jowls. He's never balked before. He sees something, Elias murmured. Boone scoffed, but the townsfolk had begun to turn. They were watching now, watching a horse watch a girl. Sheriff Carver frowned. What's the matter with your beast, Weller? He's got no taste for drama, I reckon. Boone tried to laugh. It came out wrong. He gestured toward the hanging girl. You done yet? 10 more minutes. But the horse refused. He didn't stomp, didn't thrash, just stood, breathing like a bellows, eyes locked on the scaffold. The silence spread like a drop of ink in water. The whispering stopped. Even the boy who'd thrown the rock lowered his hand. Carver looked uneasy now. Elias, move that damn horse. Elias crouched slightly, face near the animal's cheek. He won't move. Not till she's down. The sheriff stared. The town stared. Something ancient and wordless passed through the crowd, a weight shifting in the wind. Carver grunted. Fine. Cut her down. The blade sliced the rope with a tired hiss. Tess fell into a crumple. She didn't cry out. Elias moved first, catching her elbow before her shoulder met the dirt. She jerked away, but he didn't let go. You all right? He asked softly. She looked up, eyes red-rimmed and wild. You think he did me a kindness? No, he said. He did. He nodded toward the horse. They brought her water. She didn't drink it. Boone stepped forward then, looming like a man made of bacon and grudges. Girls got nerve, hanging like that, and not even we pinned out. He looked her over as if sizing up a piece of storm-damaged furniture. Sheriff, what happens next? Carver rubbed his temple. Could jail her. Could let her starve. Could ship her to the mines. Boone made a noise low in his throat. Hell, she can work it off at my place. Tess spat at the ground between them. I'd rather rot. Fine, Boone said, turning. Let her rot. Elias stepped forward. I'll watch her. Keep her working. Boone paused. And if she steals again? She won't. Their eyes met. Something in Boone's face shifted, disgust, interest, calculation. Your responsibility, then? That evening, Tess rode in the back of a wagon with a bruised spine and a worse pride. Her wrists were chafed from rope, her mouth dry from silence. Boone drove, grunting at bumps. Elias sat beside him, quiet as dusk. They passed the Hartley shack an hour later. Slanted porch, choke garden. Tessa's sister Willa stood on the steps, wrapped in a shawl too big for her bird-like frame. She didn't wave. She only watched, hand over her mouth. Tess didn't meet her gaze. She couldn't. The night before, Willa had held her hands in trembling fingers. We can fix this. You think this is fixable? Let me go in your place. Tess had laughed. Not kindly. He sent for you, not me. I'm too sick. You know it. You wanted to marry that. Asterisk thing, asterisk. Willa didn't answer. Tess had thrown the silk handkerchief on the table like a confession. It was pretty. I wanted to feel like someone else. Now, as the wagon rolled past their home, Tess clutched the hem of her skirt, still marked with dust, still torn where the rope had bitten. That night, she slept in a barn loft above the horses. Elias brought her a blanket, but didn't speak. She watched him from the shadows, her pride gnawing itself to pieces. You ever lie? She asked. He looked up. Like really lie. Say you were someone else. Elias shrugged. Once. Did it help? No, but it let me live another day. She wrapped the blanket tighter. Her body ached like a violin out of tune. My sister wanted me to go in her place. Trade names. She said it'd be easier. He didn't reply. She whispered, maybe I already did. He turned to go but paused. The horse didn't see a liar. Just someone worth stopping for. She didn't know what to do with that. As Elias disappeared into the night, Tess reached into her pocket and pulled out the stolen handkerchief. Torn, frayed at the edge. She folded it slowly, pressed it to her face, and inhaled something soft and useless and lovely. The barn creaked. The horses stirred. And beneath her, Sancho shifted his weight, as if remembering something he still believed to be true. The ranch house rose like a shipwreck on the prairie. Vast, splintered, sun-bleached, and lonesome in a way that made even the wind seem reluctant to whistle through its eaves. Unia Granger stood at the wrought iron gate, her gloved hands trembling as she looked upon the estate that had, by name, become hers. She'd married Otis Brackett with ink, not vows. No preacher, no lace. Just a signature and a silence that stretched between her and her sister like a canyon neither had dared cross until now. The front door creaked open with the heaviness of old decisions. Otis filled the doorway, a man built like a furnace, broad, fleshy, sweating through his collar despite the chill. He didn't smile, just opened the door wider with one hand and motioned her in with the other. Rooms upstairs. Third on the left, he said. His voice sounded like dry corn husks, flat and final. She nodded, words shrinking in her throat. She climbed the stairs, counting each groan of the wood beneath her boots. The room smelled of cigar ash and lemon oil. There were no flowers, no mirror, not even curtains, just a bed that looked slept in by ghosts. That night, she lay stiff and silent, the sheets crisp but unwelcoming. Downstairs, she heard Otis pacing, the occasional clink of glass, a muttered curse. Her wedding night passed like fog, untouched, unspoken, unwelcome. Meanwhile, miles away, Willa packed her meager belongings into a flour sack. One tin cup, a rust-frayed shawl, and a folded piece of paper stained with onion skin ink. Unia's letter from weeks ago, when she'd begged Willa not to return to town. But the guilt it carried was heavier than any sheriff's rope. Harlan Crow watched from the porch, sharpening a blade that needed no edge. Boaz, his paint horse, stood by the fence, ears forward, eyes soft. You sure? Harlan asked without looking up. I got hands and legs, Willis said. That means I got choices. You had choices before, he murmured. She cinched the sack tighter. Not the right ones. She walked until her boots blistered, until the shadows lengthened and the horizon blued. Boaz followed. She cursed him, waved him off, even threw a pebble, but the horse trailed her anyway, slow and faithful, until her anger broke into laughter, and her laughter into tears. She slumped against the cottonwood and let the night fall on her shoulders like a quilt of regret. Boaz nosed her gently. I wasn't worth saving, she whispered, stroking his mane. But maybe she still is. The next morning, a trader passed her on the Salt Creek Road, his wagon rattling with tinware and gossip. You hear about the Brackett woman? He said, not recognizing her through the dust and shadows of her hat brim. Willa stilled. What woman? The new wife. Locked her in the smoke cellar. So she talked back. The trader spat. Guess she thought she could make choices too. She didn't wait for the sun to rise. She rode Boaz through the darkness, the wind cold as judgment, her breath cutting sharp against her teeth. The world blurred past, trees, rocks, fences. Only the sound of hooves kept rhythm with her thoughts. At the Brackett estate, all was silent. No dogs barked, no lanterns burned. The gate creaked open as if it had expected her. She tethered Boaz beneath the pines and crept toward the cellar door, fingers shaking, eyes wide in the dark. It was barred from the outside. She slid the bolt with effort and lifted the lid. The air that escaped was damp with mildew and the bitter stink of ash. "Unia," she whispered. A dry cough answered. She descended into the dark. Unia lay curled in the corner, her wrists bruised, her eyes wild. "Willa!" Her voice cracked. "What are you?" "Shoo," Willa said, crouching beside her. "Come on. We're going." "I can't," Unia breathed. He said if I left, he'd find you. That he owns you too." A creak above. Willa rose, heart thundering. Otis stood at the cellar door, lantern in hand, casting long, monstrous shadows behind him. Well, he said, voice low. Didn't think the little thief would grow a spine." Willa stepped between him and Unia. Her body was trembling, but her voice did not waver. "I came to take her place," she said. Otis laughed. "You think this is about swapping sisters like horses? I don't want a brat with bite. I want obedience. Quiet. Warmth that don't talk." Behind him the wind shifted. A heavy step. A presence. Harlan. He didn't speak. Didn't raise a weapon. He simply stood there, dark as dusk, eyes level, still as a tree rooted in right and wrong. Otis looked from Willa to Harlan, and something in him twitched. Not fear exactly. Something deeper. Recognition. "This ain't your land, half-breed," he hissed. "No," Harlan said softly. "But neither is she." Otis stepped forward, but Boaz neighed outside, high and shrill, as if the world itself had grown impatient. Willa picked up a rusted iron poker from the corner. She didn't swing. She just held it, steady and silent. In the firelight, her grip was white-knuckled, but her eyes never left Otis. "You let her walk out of here," she said, "or you'll limp for the rest of your life." Something in Otis shifted then, not because of the weapon, but because for the first time he looked at Willa and saw a woman who had been hung, humiliated, hunted, and who stood anyway. He stepped aside. Willa helped Unia up. They climbed out together, not running, just walking, deliberate, unbroken, back into the cold breath of night. At the fence, Harlan waited. He didn't ask questions, just helped Unia onto Boaz's back and led them both home. 3 days later, Unia boarded a train headed east. She kissed Willa's forehead and pressed her wedding band into her hand. "I wore it so you wouldn't have to," she said. "Now bury it. Or sell it. I don't care." Then she was gone. Willa stood at the platform long after the train whistle faded, the ring burning cold in her palm. She didn't speak until Harlan came to stand beside her, silent as always. "She gave up everything," she murmured. And still, she almost disappeared. "You didn't let her," he said. She turned, the wind tangling her hair, and for the first time, didn't flinch beneath his gaze. "I don't know what I'm meant to do now," she said. He looked at her, long, slow, quiet. "Stay." The word hung there, soft but solid. An offer, not an order. And for once, she didn't feel like she owed it to anyone to refuse.